Ireland, the Emerald Isle, a land of natural splendor, turbulent history, and one of the world's highest GDPs, standing at a whopping $106,000 per person. Yet, while these official figures paint a picture of prosperity and unimaginable wealth, just take a closer look at the everyday reality of Ireland's citizens and the picture that emerges is concerning. A cost of living crisis, housing shortages, protests, immigration, and an economy at the mercy of foreign powers. So what's really going on? Welcome to Living History. Our story actually begins in 1847, during the Great Famine, a catastrophic period where over 1 million people perished, a shocking 11% of the population at the time, with many more emigrating to America as a direct result. This left an indelible mark, with population numbers still today not having fully recovered. The result, moving into the 20th century, Ireland was largely bypassed by the industrial wave sweeping Europe. Hindered by limited natural resources and societal unrest, the economy remained predominantly agrarian well into the 1970s. There is, however, more to it. You see, Irish independence in 1922 followed a bloody conflict, which ushered in a new era of economic challenges. The subsequent economic war with Britain and the global Great Depression further exacerbated Ireland's troubles. It was during this time that Ireland, inspired perhaps by the then thriving Soviet Union, adopted protectionist policies under the leadership of Eamon de Valera. These, however, backfired disastrously, contracting the economy further and triggering another mass exodus of Irish citizens in search of better opportunities abroad. Here, though, is where things really start to get interesting. The significant turning point was in 1958, with Prime Minister Sean Lemass and economist T.K. Whitaker, who introduced more open economic policies. These included reducing trade barriers, encouraging foreign investment, and privatizing state corporations, marking the beginning of a new economic era. The game changer, however, was joining the European Economic Community in 1973, which diversified trade beyond the UK. Ireland's liberal policies in the late 20th century, coupled with its low corporate tax rates, which currently stands at just 12.5%, attracted substantial foreign investment from giants like Apple, Google, and Pfizer, transforming Ireland into the tech-driven economy we see today. Remember the Celtic Tiger era? This was the culmination of these reforms, resulting in a period of rapid economic growth that transformed Ireland into one of the world's wealthiest nations, albeit with some serious challenges waiting ahead. And one of those challenges is the illusionary mirage of prosperity. You see, Ireland's gleaming GDP per capita, one of the highest globally as we mentioned earlier, suggests a nation flush with wealth. But don't be fooled, this number hides more than it reveals. Beneath the impressive statistics lies a reality shaped largely by the presence of multinational corporations, drawn to Ireland by its corporate-friendly tax policies. Because Ireland boasts a corporate tax rate significantly lower than the European average, this has turned the country into a preferred European headquarters for giants like Apple, Google, and Pfizer. Needless to say, these companies benefit tremendously from the low tax rate and a skilled English-speaking workforce, contributing massively to a GDP that seems to reflect a thriving economy. However, their presence also significantly influences Ireland's policy-making and economic strategy, shaping a business environment tailored to suit corporate needs. However, here's the kicker. Most of these profits, although counted in Ireland's GDP, hardly trickle down to the average Connor or Aidan on the street. Just consider this. In 2015, Ireland's GDP growth spiked to an eye-watering 25.2%. A figure largely inflated by the financial gymnastics of multinational corporations relocating their assets to Irish shores. This phenomenon, humorously dubbed Leprechaun Economics, reveals a gaping disparity between real economic activity that benefits the populace and the economic activities that inflate GDP figures. The term highlights how statistical distortions can mask underlying economic realities, making it difficult to gauge true economic progress. Now, why does this matter? Because when you hear about Ireland's economic success, you're often hearing about a facade that doesn't tell the full story. The average Irish citizen isn't seeing their wallet thicken because of what's counted in GDP figures. Instead, they face a cost of living crisis that doesn't match the so-called economic prosperity. In 2024, for instance, while GDP per capita is above $100,000, median household income stands at around just $40,000, illustrating the stark difference in economic impact. Furthermore, the role of these multinational giants is profound but skewed. They dominate the economic landscape without embedding deeply into the local economies. Yes, they create jobs, but the wealth accumulation remains top-heavy, with benefits accruing primarily to executives and shareholders, rather than the broader workforce. This situation exacerbates income inequality even further and challenges the sustainability of economic growth reliant on such corporations. Ireland, however, aware of the distortions in GDP, has started moving towards using modified domestic demand, or MDD, to measure economic growth, a metric that perhaps paints a more accurate picture of economic health. The MDD excludes the effects of, for example, multinational companies' relocations of intellectual property and aircraft leasing from GDP, thus offering a more realistic view of the domestic economy's health. There is, however, another crisis brewing underneath all this. As quaint as cobblestone streets may look, they lead to some of the least affordable homes in Europe, especially tough on the younger Irish. In 2023, Ireland managed to construct only 32,695 housing units and fell short of the mark needed to keep roofs over heads without breaking the bank. Despite a small spike in building, the real villains, lack of state investment in social housing and knotty planning regulations, remain at large, keeping Ireland in the throes of one of Europe's most severe housing shortages. But how severe are we talking? Let's paint a picture of Dublin, where the average rent hits around €2,102 a month. That's a full month's take-home pay of a newly qualified teacher, gone just like that. Imagine budgeting your life around such figures. This scarcity of affordable housing has led to significant increases in property prices and rents, which have nearly doubled since the start of the decade. The stringent mortgage lending rules from the Central Bank of Ireland, which restrict borrowing to 4 times a buyer's gross income, combined with high property prices, have made it increasingly difficult for first-time buyers and young people to enter the property market. As a result, many find themselves either stuck living with their parents or considering migration as a feasible alternative. This housing crisis, though, has deep historical roots. You see, since the 1980s, similar to Margaret Thatcher's policy shifts in Britain, Irish governments have moved away from building council housing, opting instead to sell off public housing and stigmatize the remaining social housing sectors. In fact, 2/3 of the social housing built since the 1930s has been sold into private ownership, reducing the availability of affordable housing. Now, if you think that's rough, consider this. The high rate of tenant evictions and a rental market dominated by short-term lets have further diminished the availability of long-term rental housing. Over the past 3 years alone, 30,000 households have been evicted, more than during the peak years of the Great Famine. This situation is driving up homelessness and forcing a demographic shift as young adults delay starting families due to housing insecurity. As a result, the population has not rebounded to the peak levels seen before the Great Famine of the 1840s. Efforts are afoot to mend these cracks. The Planning and Development Bill, for example, aims to unclog the planning pipeline and reduce the legal logjams. Yet the impact lags, as much of the new housing stock comprises high-cost, investor-fueled units that hardly scratch the surface of affordability for most residents. Economic disparities further complicate this picture. Despite Ireland's rapid economic growth, the gap between rich and poor is widening. A report by Social Justice Ireland highlights that recent government fiscal measures have benefited wealthier groups disproportionately, exacerbating income inequality even further and deepening socio-economic divisions within society. Diving deeper, speculative investment and the gentrification it brings, fueled by both domestic and international capital, have also played crucial roles in shaping housing affordability and socio-economic inequality. These factors have led to increased property prices and rents, particularly in urban areas, pushing lower-income residents out of their neighborhoods. The impact is particularly felt by younger generations and families who find themselves unable to afford homes without significant financial assistance, often relying on intergenerational wealth transfers which further entrench existing disparities. Adding to this drama is the troubling trend of properties flipping from long-term rentals to more lucrative Airbnb listings. There are now 14 times as many properties on Airbnb as there are available for long-term rental. This shift, while profitable for some, spells disaster for those simply trying to find a place to call home. It not only displaces long-standing communities, but also contributes to a kind of economic segregation, where access to housing is increasingly dictated by one's financial leverage rather than need. And let's not overlook the political landscape. Housing has become a contentious issue, weaponized by the right of the political spectrum. Riots in Dublin have underscored the emergence of a small, nascent far-right that is exploiting the housing crisis to foster animosity towards immigrants and asylum seekers. This political maneuvering diverts attention from the structural issues at the heart of the housing crisis and aims to pit different social groups against each other, complicating efforts to address the crisis effectively. Now, to see a brighter future, addressing the root causes of Ireland's housing crisis with comprehensive reforms is vital. These reforms can include overhauling tax policies to discourage speculative investments and prioritizing affordable housing initiatives. For example, although 58% of new homes in Greater Dublin in 2022 were developed by investor funds, raising rents and limiting home ownership, these practices can be curtailed by reforming investment initiatives. Additionally, enhancing tenant rights and implementing robust rent control could offer immediate relief. Moreover, a significant focus should be on social welfare programs that support housing stability. Despite a €12 billion surplus, the prioritization of debt reduction over housing investments reflects a miscalculation that perpetuates generational inequality. Emulating Vienna's model, where 50% of all housing is publicly built for various income groups, could guide Ireland towards more equitable housing solutions. Establishing a public construction company to transform housing delivery using Ireland's resources might also be a good idea. What do you think is the best way forward for Ireland? Let us know in the comments below. In the meantime, check out this video about the economic challenges facing France.